have a first call and a second call and a third call to start the meeting. The first call was at 11 o'clock yesterday, and you needed a 75% majority to convene the meeting on the first call. Obviously, you never get that, so then you go to the second call, which is at 9 o'clock this morning, and you need a 51% majority to convene the meeting on the second call, and we don't have that. So then we're going to wait about 10 minutes, and we do the third call, and then whatever the simple majority then can convene the meeting. That's procedural, but in order to follow the sub-condominium regime, we need to do that. So for about 10 minutes, help yourself to breakfast and visit with your friends, and then we will get started in about just 10 minutes and do the third call, at which we will officially be in the meeting. And then David will do some introductions and things here in just a moment.
For anyone in the room who is listening through the webinar, can you hear me or Gary through the webinar itself? Does anyone have the webinar on and hear? I just heard it before. Or Bayat, the one in the corner? Who is that, Jason's? Can just make sure that you can hear me on that. All right. After all this, I think, Jason, just let me know.
You can put those extra chairs
right
over
can
here.
You hear me, Jason?
You
can hear me fine?
In front, if you want.
Thumbs up means thumbs up. Okay. All right. So I know everyone online can hear me. Welcome to the Grand Regina PRC Homeowners Meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 10th, and we are meeting at the Sheraton Hotel in Cabo San Lucas. My name is David Zale, and I'm a member of the Grand Regina PRC Advisory Board. With me on the dais are Gary Alcorn, a member of the board and the representative of the residential administrator, Michael Palercio, a member of the advisory board, Wes Brown, a member of the advisory board. We have Marcela Canales, who is the counsel for Raintree, Roberto Perales, who is the accountant for the Grand Regina and also an employee of Raintree. And by the way, just to remind you that Raintree is the residential administrator for the Grand Regina Trust. And in the audience, we have Sean O'Brien. Sean O'Brien is sitting in the back, who is the counsel for Starwood and Starwood Vacation Ownership, and Bayat Mayer, who is the general manager of the Westin. Now, this webinar is being presented in audio only. There is no PowerPoint presentation. Yesterday and again this morning, we sent out an email to all the owners that included the 7 links to the documents that will be discussed at today's meeting. If you did not receive this email, then please contact memberservices@grandregina.com. That's Josefina, and she is in the audience today. All participants will be in a listen-only mode. If you would like to ask any questions, we encourage you to do so topically, as we will describe, and to send your questions again to memberservices@grandregina.com. In addition, we have posted videos of the property on the following of the property on the following website or URL, which has been sent to you from Member Services. And this website is also being recorded and will be available for listening from tomorrow, March 11th, probably through next Friday, March 20th. We'll let you know. And you'll be able to access that link starting tomorrow through Member Services. Now let me turn the meeting over to Gary.
Okay, we're going to do what I described earlier, the third call, which will actually officially convene the meeting. And so we are officially convened at this point in the meeting. We have some preliminary things we have to do, and that is, first of all, we have to elect the president, secretary, and examiners of the meeting. By electing these people, let me assure you and those listening in, this is not electing an officer for an HOA. This is actually electing somebody that's presiding over this meeting. At the conclusion of the meeting, these people will have no more capacity after the meeting. So we have as president Gary Alcorn, David Zell as secretary, Marcela Canales and Roberto Perales is the examiners. They've examined and recorded all the ballots. So and for those who are in the audience, how many of you submitted a proxy and how many are you going to vote today? I mean, just by virtue of. Yeah, well, that's good. You're good. You're right. I asked too many questions too quickly. How many are going to vote in person today? Let's do it that way. Okay, everybody here. All right, so let's get a show of the hands to elect the president, secretary, and the examiners. Can you count those, Marcella?
Yeah. Yeah, basically, I count them until they give me back their ballots. But it's a majority, so.
Okay, but okay, you want them to fill out a ballot?
Yes, and at the end of the meeting.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Do everyone have a ballot? Yeah.
Okay, we'll hand them out. We'll still get a show of hands. We'll do a show of hands, but it would help to fill out the ballot, and then basically the officers carried. Any opposed to those officers?
Just as a point of reference right now, if on the webinar you cannot hear what someone is saying, please contact member services and Josefina will tell us, and we will attempt to repeat the question and the answer.
The second order of business is for those residential owners who have not paid their corresponding residential assessments as of the date of the meeting, and that goes back to not the assessment we're going to vote on at this meeting, but the one at the previous meeting in 2013. For those that have not paid that assessment, they shall not have the right to vote at this meeting. How many approve with a show of hands? Okay, and those opposed? Okay. Basically, the motion would carry based on the ballots that we received as well. Okay, I want to do a couple of things before we get into some of the detail of the budget and the construction. First of all, here's a copy of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'm going to record it.
Okay. So we held that on December 5th of 2013. The PRC and Villas Master Condominium met at the restaurant there on the Grand Regina. The meeting was presided by the advisory board comprised of Gary Alcorn representing CR Resorts Holding, David Zell, Michael Plurcio, Bill Kruger, Wes Brown, and Carla Sander representing the owners. The meeting was broadcasted on the Grand Regina's website. The sub-condominium regulations require a call to order with a minimum representation of 75 undivided interest. Otherwise, a second call with 51% undivided interest. And then since we don't achieve that, and that's what we did this morning, the meeting was duly convened with the quorum attending. Gary Alcorn opened the meeting by welcoming the owners in attendance, informing the PRC owners about the formalities in accordance with the Mexican law for the meeting of the stature. The advisory board requested the PRC owners to submit their ballots, which Marcella just did. And then we had a discussion by the various members of the advisory board. We had some questions. Basically, Bill Kruger went over collections. Bill Kruger has since resigned from the board. Wes talked about the renovation. Michael talked about sales. David talked about rentals. And Veronica talked about the resort itself, and all these notes are available to anybody that wants them. The following items were voted on and approved by proxy or those owners attending in person. Gary Alcorn served as the president, David Zell as secretary, Marcela Canales and Oscar Arroyo served as examiners. And then we approved the residential administrators who were in default, not having the ability to vote at the meeting. We approved the 2014 maintenance fees. We approved the 2014 budget. We approved the resort renovations using a portion of the reserves on the balance sheet to do that, and then we closed the meetings. So that's a brief summary of the minutes from last year. And before we get into some of the detail, I also want to talk about the process that we have incurred, and since particularly the hurricane, since the last meeting. The purpose of the meeting is really to review the results of the past year. And as everyone knows, one of the most devastating things that's ever happened to Los Cabos is Hurricane Odile. It came ashore on September 18th, and did major damage to the resort. Many of you, most of you in the room this morning attended or did a tour of the resort yesterday. I think you saw firsthand the amount of damage. I want to go over the process that we went through for those here this morning and for those listening in. Approximately 2 weeks after the hurricane, we engaged a firm called Cotton Restoration to begin the remediation process. That basically cleaned out all the debris, boarded up all the windows. Essentially all the windows were blown out, and secured the rooms from a climate control standpoint. That process took from a couple of weeks after the hurricane until basically about the first or second week in November. We immediately contacted our insurance agent, who assigned an insurance adjuster to the claim. And we immediately started working with the adjuster. The insurance company hired their own construction expert to review the damage on behalf of the insurance company and begin to assess the damage from the standpoint of the claim. Wes Brown, to my right here, who oversaw the renovation, has been in the construction business his whole career. He's built hotels, he's remodeled hotels, and we're very fortunate to have him, but it's become a full-time job. So full disclosure, we engaged both Raintree and the Grand Regina, engaged Wes as the project administrator. This project cannot be done without a project administrator. It's way too massive. Immediately, Wes started working with contractors. One of the contractors we started working with was Cotton itself. Their original quote plus IMM, a contractor who did the renovation, came back to somewhere north of $12 million, $11 million in damages. The insurance adjuster's construction specialist came back with damages less than the deductible. It took from the time that happened, sometime late November, until probably 2 weeks ago when we received the policy limits. It took that long to work through the process with the insurance adjuster, their construction specialist, and ourselves. We ended up having a meeting on site in January because the two sides were too far apart. And we were always trying to convince the adjuster that the damages were a lot higher than the adjuster's construction expert said they were. And finally we did that based upon having this on-site meeting first week of January, where the insurance adjuster, let me get through this one statement. In fact, let me get through with the whole concept here, and then I'll raise the door for questions. The insurance adjuster, based on the on-site meeting, we came to an agreement, and the policy was settled. So that's the process that we undertook since the hurricane. We tried to communicate the process via email. Email is not always the best communication process, and so we felt like we were doing what we could do based on the information we had, but people didn't think we were communicating quick enough or fast enough or sufficient enough. And we communicated with about 20 email blasts trying to bring people up to speed on the resort and its condition. And that's where we are today. With the process of, we've engaged IMM, who did the interior reconstruction, and we engaged a firm out of Puerto Vallarta that is going to do the exterior. We Raintree knows both IMM and the contractor out of Puerto Vallarta. The contractor out of Puerto Vallarta built the Villa Vera Hotel across the street from the Club Regina, so they have experience in hotel construction. And IMM, as we all know, did the renovation, and we have good experience with IMM. So I will now entertain a question.
The adjuster that you used, was it an independent adjuster or an adjuster from the insurance company?
Can you repeat the question for the webinar?
The question was, the adjuster that we used, was it an independent adjuster or an adjuster for the insurance company? The adjuster was a representative of the insurance company and engaged by the insurance company.
You use an independent adjuster to go against?
We didn't need to, because we got 100% of what the policy would give us. And I'll go over the insurance policy in a moment.
Gotcha.
There was no more money under the policy to be obtained. We got 100% of the insurance policy.
They're pretty good.
Well, the damages dictated that we should get that much. Y'all saw the damages yesterday. Any other questions or comments? Let's move on to, I'm going to hit some highlights of some of the email questions that I've gotten over the course of, that we've all gotten, that y'all responded to member services. I'm going to try to hit some of the highlights for those people listening in and the people in the audience. I'm sure it will generate some questions, but it may answer some questions. So I want to talk about insurance for just a moment. One of the questions that has come up is, why was the Grand Regina insured along with the Club Regina or a Raintree property? And the reason for that is the Grand Regina is not an independent organization. We were working toward becoming an independent organization last year, where we were going to vote on at last December's meeting on the formation of a civil association, the first step in becoming independent. And we were going to then convene a board of directors that had governing authority over the resort, who would engage a residential administrator, and Raintree was prepared to resign as the residential administrator. But because the Grand Regina is not a separate entity, and it is being administered, the residential administrator of the Grand Regina is CR Resorts Holding. It's a Mexican subsidiary of Raintree. Then the resort was insured under the Raintree policies, which covered all of Raintree resorts, including the Grand Regina. We procured our insurance through AIG and their subsidiaries. AIG is one of the largest insurance companies in the world. AIG said to Raintree, in Mexico, the most we will insure for hurricane windstorm damage is a $15 million policy with a $5 million deductible. We looked at obtaining reinsurance, which was virtually impossible to get, and we actually just renewed our policy for the same policy limits. Once again, we have asked for the deductibles to be lowered and the limits to be raised. Let me get finished. Now I'll open the floor to questions. For the deductible to be raised. The quote that has come back for that is essentially the cost of the existing coverage. And so we're going back and asking for a different quote. So the policy is split between Raintree and the Grand Regina. And had you had your own policy and AIG was your insurer, you would have had a $5 million deductible. And your assessment would have been about twice as much as the assessment is going to be, because you would have had to cover the $5 million deductible. Because AIG has basically said they're going to do a $15 million policy with a $5 million deductible.
Well, is that $15 million for the whole, for both entities?
Yeah, for both resorts. So the deductible is split. Excuse me?
It's just the Grand Regina without the Club Regina.
You would have a $5 million deductible. Now the deductible is split between the Grand Regina and
So
Raintree.
it's 2.5.
It's not even. It's going to be prorated based once we get all the final numbers in. So it's not a 50-50 split.
Unless the money's 50-50.
Unless, and we'll show you how the policy, once everything is settled, we'll send out a correspondence.
I think you said 60-40 or something like that.
I can't commit to a percentage. It's until we get everything in. And I don't know that it's going to be 40, and I don't know what it's going to be at this point. I don't think it was ever 40. I really don't.
So we're left with $10 million in the whole pot.
$10 million was the policy limit that was paid to cover both resorts.
Both resorts.
If you recall, and you may not if you've been around since 2008, the Grand Regina was moving to become independent then, and they obtained a quote for an insurance policy. The premium on that policy was $227,000 with a 25% co-insurance and a 5% deductible. You are basically in the same spot today if you would have had your own insurance based on paying those premiums over the last 10 years, plus the co-insurance, plus the deductible. So from an insurance perspective, we are where we are, but I think it wouldn't have been able to be much different if you would have had your own insurance. We had a lot of conversation. Let me stop on insurance if anybody has any questions. Other ones, go ahead.
I think that going forward, I mean, what does it take to become an independent organization? Because that's really what we need to do.
Can you answer? Yes.
I think it's all part of everything, all of it.
Yeah. The question was, what does it take to become an independent organization? And the comment was, that's what we need to do. I think that Raintree supports that, and that we do think you need to be independent, and we were working toward that. So the first step in doing that is to form a civil association. And when the civil association is formed, you will elect a board of directors that will be governing the Grand Regina Civil Association, just using that for a name, for example. According to the sub-condominium declarations, you will have to have a residential administrator. You will have to engage a residential administrator. I can tell you Raintree does not want to do that.
Well, there are a lot.
And there are people that do that, and we had a quote from several last year that we were going to present at the meeting. The one which we were going to recommend was Rescom, who has been in the fractional and timeshare resort management business for many, many years. We know them well. They're very good. And so those are the steps you would take. And I think that should be looked at and moved forward for the meeting in December.
I have another question. Is the trust in any way affected by the removal of Raintree in this and becoming our own independent? I mean, do we then, the whole concept of the trust dictating what we do is foreign.
The trusts stay in place. The trust is dictated by Mexican law.
Right.
So nothing's going to change on the trust. You're just going to have a new residential administrator that you engage to manage the resort like Raintree does.
Will there be any kind of legalities with the Mexican government that we have to follow, or taxes or whatever that we
You will have to, I don't know, I don't know all the tax issues with the Mexican government, but you will have to begin filing tax returns and things with the federal authorities or the Mexican government, whatever. We call it, hacienda, basically. And so, yeah, there'll be some additional procedural things, but that's what your residential administrator will do.
Along with securing insurance policies and
You'll get policies
accounting
and-
services and
Yeah.
everything else. Basically, everything that they've been doing for us, in many cases for no charge, is now going to be something that we're going to have to deal with on a go-forward basis.
You get charged. We get $20,000 for being the
Wow,
resident
okay.
administrator, and
Like I said,
and we pass on the cost of the employees that work on behalf of the grant. Yes, sir.
Before we move on away from the insurance, could you just clarify the so-called hurricane fund that we established years ago in light of the risk being minimal for what it was going to cost us. Just kind of bring us up to
Sure.
how it started and what ended up happening to a lot of that money.
Sure.
And just repeat it.
The question basically is a discussion surrounding the hurricane reserve that was on the balance sheet, and what happened to that money, and basically how was the reserve established, so I'll try to answer that. The reserve and the amount in the hurricane reserve as of December 2013 in round numbers was $1 million. There was another $1 million in round numbers that was for replacement reserve. I don't know the history of how the hurricane reserve was established and the amount that was established. That was before my time, but I can tell you the decision that was made and voted on at the meeting last year was that we would take a portion of the hurricane reserve and a portion of the replenishment reserve plus some monies generated from the sale of defaulted weeks, and we would do the resort renovation. So today the reserve, and we'll look at the balance sheet in a moment, so don't hold my feet to the fire on this, but in round numbers, the hurricane reserve is at $500,000, and the replenishment reserve is somewhere less than that, 400 and something thousand. We'll get that exact number. The decision was made by the owners to use a portion of those reserves primarily because in 40 years, there's never been a hurricane the magnitude of Hurricane Odell in Los Cabos over the last 40 years. Taking that into consideration, the owners felt like that 500, and let me back up a moment, and we've had hurricanes come through Los Cabos before, but the resort has been back up and running within a day or so, and the damages have all basically been less than $100,000. So based on that information, the owners last year approved using a portion of those reserves to do the renovation. So that's the history of that. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. One of the major topics that came through the emails is lost reservations, and what were we going to do with lost reservations? And particularly because people paid the maintenance fees and they didn't get to use the property. We sent out a survey to the owners, and I think we got 50 responses of what to do. One of the options basically was to just everybody loses. Another of the options was that we would allow usage of those weeks, but under a shorter reservation cycle. The count came back virtually split. So half of the people said you lose it, half of the people said, no, we'd like to carry it over. And then there was a lot of conversation about, well, I paid my maintenance fee, am I going to get it refunded? Do I have to pay it again when the resort opens if I want to use the resort? Do I have to pay my 2016 maintenance fee? And the answer is that collectively the owners own the resort, and the resort has to be operated, and the maintenance fees cover the operations of the resort. So there's no financial ability within the Grand Regina to go ahead and write a check to all the people that lost a reservation. You don't have the financial capacity to do so. So I think a hybrid solution has been proposed. I don't think we have all the details, but I think for those people that lost the use of a reservation, who had a reservation in both 2014 and 15, that we are going to come up with a system that will let people use those weeks. I don't have the final, or we as the advisory board don't have the final details on how that will work. I think it has to surround itself around a shorter reservation cycle than the normal 9 and 12 month, depending on your rotation. But hopefully the ability, there will be the ability to add a week to your stay based on occupancy of the resort. I think we have to make a conscious decision that those weeks that have been defaulted on from a maintenance fee perspective, both historically and what's going to happen, that we make as many of those weeks available to use that.
Do you have any idea of people that are going to pay?
Not yet. I'll get to that later.
Ask the question.
I'm not ready to answer it yet. Let me get to that. I have that. I'll get to that in just a moment. So what that's going to mean to the resort by using those weeks that have defaulted already, we have about, how many, David, weeks are in the people have defaulted on?
Over 100, about 150.
About 150 weeks.
That we own.
That we in the past have rented that, and that money has gone into the resort, which has helped defer operating costs. So in the budget, you'll notice the rental has been taken down. We won't, if we let those weeks be used for excess capacity, which that's probably the best solution. It's going to result in less rental, which is a little more in cost of operating the resort. Let me get to your question, Mr. Lynette. The question was, do we have any idea who is going to participate in the rebuild? And right now we have 586 total contracts at the Grand.
586?
586. And those are comprised of weeks. A contract could have, for example, 2 prime, 1 value. It could have fixed weeks. It could have multiple owners. So the contract is going to govern what happens when we get to talking about who's going to pay and not pay. And we have thus far have 222 who have responded to the survey that yes, they're going to participate. That said yes, they're going to participate.
Okay, but each contract, I mean, it could be 10 weeks and it could be 2 weeks.
Yep.
So if 222 people said yes, and a great bulk of them have multiple weeks, more than
the amount of money that relates to is the amount of money that relates to is $1.3 million.
I just want to say something else. I believe that there is a huge misconception with people, the owners. They seem to think that the resort exists as a unit in itself, and that if they lost their money and their weeks and their maintenance, that the great somebody who is the Grand Regina is going to give them back. They don't understand that we as owners are the Grand Regina.
Correct.
I mean, this is a huge misconception, because I've talked to owners and it's like, well, who's going to give me that? And how am I going to do this? And, what are they going to do for me? And it's like, this is our home. We took a loss,
I think that's a good, let me summarize her point, because I think that's a point that people need to understand.
Right.
Is I think the comment was the owners at the Grand don't realize that they own the resort and that they are responsible for operating the resort. And so therefore, when a natural disaster like this occurs, then the owners say, well, I paid my money, I couldn't stay, who's going to give it back to me? Well, the only people that can give it back to you are the other owners. And I don't think they're willing to collectively pitch in to give refunds to owners that want a refund. Did I summarize that?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have some question. When you said that 222 responded, the 586, is that 222 contracts?
Yes, ma'am.
222 contracts.
The question was, out of those responding, the 222 thus far, are those contracts or are those owners? That's contracts. Yes, sir.
How many percentage negatives would that be?
I understood your number said 500 some contracts,
Yeah.
200 some said yes. How many have definitively told you no?
I don't think I've tallied the no's. We've had probably, y'all have read the emails. I'm going to say we've had probably 20 to 30 that have definitely said no.
So you have roughly 200 and some that hasn't responded one way.
Yes,
Correct.
yes. Does that sound about
They have
right?
official cut bait date to respond.
Excuse me?
They have official cut bait date, or they just gonna get the bill and then you're gonna see them whenever they get it.
Well, we'll get to that a little more when we talk about the assessment and the billing, but essentially, I think we're going to send the bill out and we'll know. Yes, sir. You had a question, I think. No? Any other question?
I
Okay.
have a recommendation.
Okay.
I think that what the owners who are on the fence, and more apt to maybe walk away, I think that once they see that there's real progress being made and that the possibility of this reopening is larger than smaller, and if they get some kind of positive information and maybe information from other owners, not just the board, that there might be a whole other reaction to what's going on. Because right now it's like we get these emails and it's like either you pay the maintenance and you pay this, or you're done. You can't. It's almost like you really need to. We as owners need to nurture the owners that don't understand what's going on. And if we do, as a collective, really want to rebuild this property, in some way inform those other people, because they're in the dark and they don't want to throw away any more money. They don't want any money to be lost. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. The comment was related to owner communication among owners, and I'll address. If owners in this room look at one another and say, "Give me your email address," great. What I cannot do, what I have been advised by legal counsel in Mexico, particularly, and I wouldn't do it in the United States either, and I wouldn't like it if my HOA at home did it, is I cannot give you the owner's email addresses because of Mexico privacy laws. That they actually are stricter than in the U.S. And so I think that the people that toured the resort yesterday got an impression of the damage, and from a testimonial standpoint, if anybody would send me an email that wants to do a testimonial and says, I approve you sending this out to the owners, I'll be happy to do that and would welcome doing that. And once again, if you're at this meeting and y'all know each other, and many owners have each other's email addresses and phone numbers, that I just can't give you the information.
I'm not asking.
Okay. No, I know. But I'm just addressing that from the standpoint of,
I'm just saying that maybe the tone of the emails that are going out should be changed.
well, I'm basically writing the emails, and I'll take that into consideration.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Possibly the owners that are here today would have seen the damage. Maybe there could be a letter comprised with everybody's agreement and attached to one of your correspondence so that we could select someone to write it and then just say we've all been there, and so that we can attach it to your correspondence. Yep. So that we know everybody gets it.
So it's a great suggestion. One of the suggestion was that the owners who are here, for the benefit of those who are not here and listening in, come together and write their letter, comments, whatever, and that then we send it out. That we send it out to the owners in an email blast, and basically say this is a letter from owners who were on site, saw the property, and toured the property. And I think that's a fantastic suggestion. Did we have hands back here first?
I'm not trying to speak on behalf of everybody here, but I'd like to see if everybody agrees with me or not. Touring the property yesterday, I was pleased. And I would like, if there's anybody here that wasn't pleased, and you should tell everybody, and everybody here that viewed it yesterday, I was optimistic that it is not nearly as bad as we all thought it was.
Exactly.
I agree. And that was a question I had, and I'm going to be a candidate. My personality is such that I lift little balls that are around it. And so maybe I've missed some emails and things, but I think we've gotten, at least myself, feel this way, mixed things. And I understand you don't want to make commitments. One email seems to say, well, if we rebuild, but when they yesterday taking the tour, we're going to rebuild. It's just a matter of what the percentage is.
Yep.
And I think that if, this is just personally again, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm staying, and I'll say that over to nobody else. But I think if the emails were more positive, not from a feel good, nice, but just, hey guys, we're gonna do this, you do it or you're out.
Yeah.
Because some of the emails have been so conflicting, I didn't know when I got to read it. Were they gonna be built or they're not gonna be built?
That's exactly.
Well, I think
They're gonna be built,
that,
right? I mean, bottom line, you're gonna be built.
yeah, let me address that. Those are good points. The point or observation is the emails were conflicting. And yes, in some ways they were, and not by design, but by virtue of the uncertainty of what we were dealing with. And so when we reached and got the commitment of the owners of up to 1.3 million, until we had that, I honestly didn't know what could be rebuilt. Neither did Wes. And he's going to spend time. So after we got that, and even though the insurance hadn't totally settled division-wise, I feel comfortable enough to say, yes, we're going to rebuild. And immediately commit to 50% of the resort. And I think, quite frankly, 75% of the resort at this point. I really believe that out of the 1.3, that number is going to go up. And also, I do welcome the owners putting in their words a communication that we send out. I'm welcome for that. Yes, Joanne.
Gary, one thing I would like to point out also that may be helpful for you guys is you still have access to the Grand Regina website. Let's flood that message forward with encouragement, with positive responses, and updates and things like that, because that's one way that we can do that immediately while we're composing this letter of status as to where
But
they
you
are.
need to let people know that that's happening. It's okay to have a website, and it's okay to have a conversation, but if the owners really are not aware of it, leave on to that website. And that's a great idea, but I think in Gary's, in your email, maybe you would want to suggest that they take a look at that. You know,
So we can certainly do both.
Well, let's talk about going forward. We, as you know, I think we got an email with a link to a YouTube, and we're not professionals, but it's a little dark in some of the areas. But hopefully, we can do a better job of sending out progress YouTubes that really have a little better quality. We did that yesterday. It frankly was put together yesterday afternoon during the tour and went out last night. So we didn't have a chance to try to look at quality and things, but we're going to do that regularly and show the progress on the rebuild. All right. Go ahead. I'm going to take this question, but I would like to get through some of these comments. And then I think the questions are going to come as we get to, and they're all great questions, but I think as we get to each individual section, we're going to have a whole topic on construction. So I think that's going to generate a lot of questions. So if you don't mind. Yeah, I got it all. One of the comments and the suggestions that's been made and received is, well, we just need to sell 100% of the resort. We just need to sell it. First of all, I'm not sure that there could be a buyer that would entertain buying the property as is. But in order to sell the whole resort, I think you have to have virtually a pretty much commitment of 100% of the owners to sell the resort. Or at least a 75% supermajority. And I think based on the contracts we've received and feedback we've received thus far, a significant number of people do not want to sell the resort. And yeah, well, I don't think, I will tell you that I will tell you that a developer that would come in and buy the property would look at the property and based on fractional inventory on the market today and timeshare inventory on the market today, and I'm not trying to say this is a timeshare, it's a fractional. Developers are buying inventory at pretty much pennies on the dollar, and that's what somebody's going to try to do if they come in and try to buy the resort. Just so you know, and I don't know, where's Sean? Sean, y'all want to give market price for the resort today? I'm just kidding.
It would most likely be pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And it's a complicated structure probably a chance that most developers would shy away based on essentially probably one buyer would be us.
So let me tell you a little bit.
Based on the dollar before the hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the issue.
Let me tell everybody here and for those listening in, we actually contacted Starwood, and Sean, I guess it's okay to talk about this. We actually contacted Starwood a year or so ago with the idea of seeing if they wanted to purchase the weeks that had been defaulted on at the resort. And Starwood did a lot of due diligence. We gave them financial statements. Jim Gilbert helped me with this. We gave them financial statements. We gave them the weeks. We gave them historical data. And, of course, they know the property inside and out anyway. And three things happened. They basically declined. They studied it for a long time, several months, but declined. And I think they declined, and I don't want to speak for Starwood because I can't, but I would view that they declined for these reasons. First of all, they had not developed their Mexican strategy, their strategy in Mexico. Second of all, they declined because it was very, very difficult to put together a single unit. My experience with most of the brands is they will sometimes acquire inventory in a resort such as the Grand Regina, but they like one unit. They don't want to buy weeks, and they want to put together one unit so that they have that unit and they can take that unit and pull it out of the trust, put it in their own trust, make it part of their club. We couldn't put together a unit because we have basically all of the President's weeks, Holy Weeks, Easter weeks, Bisbee, Christmas, New Year, Thanksgiving are fixed weeks, as well as other fixed week contracts. So I think those were the overriding factors of why Starwood could not commit to buying those weeks. So we have tried to market those weeks, and we will continue to look for opportunities to market weeks to either to existing owners through Joanne and her resale efforts, or through somebody that is interested in acquiring a larger block of weeks. In order to do that, we need to be careful and sensitive to the owners that exist today and their rights, and that's the process that we would undertake.
The whole problem, 100% of the problem with the grant, it never was completed. It is probably the best property in the whole area. The best property, never completed.
Well, I think you're referring, the comment was the Grand was never completed, and I think that would have inference to the villas, I suspect. Is that what you mean? There was no more development at the Grand, but there was a development designed to take place at the villas. I don't know what Starwood's going to do. Starwood, as many of you know, is going to spin off their timeshare into a separate public company. Does that mean they're going to develop the villas? I don't know. I think it's a higher likelihood they would today than they would have yesterday because of the spinoff, but we don't know. 2008, we had the largest economic crash in the United States history short of the Depression. Starwood was not going to commit building the villas after 2008 based on the economics and the economic crash in the U.S. I'm not, once again, I'm surmising as someone who's been in the business world, and many of you have for many years. I just think the economics didn't work for them anymore. So a good comment. I mean, it would be a nicer property if they were built. Okay, my final comment relates to the payment of 2015 maintenance fees and the hurricane assessment and how that is viewed. This is a contract by contract basis. So if you have a contract that has 2 prime weeks and a value week, you can't decide that you're going to pay for the prime weeks and not pay for the value week and use your contract. If you have two separate contracts and you pay one contract and don't pay the other contract, I've been being told by the legal department that the contract you pay for, you still have the right to use. I want really all of us in the room and listening in to understand this is not a ticket to not pay a contract. I don't know what will happen to those people that do not pay their assessments. We're not ready to make that decision, but whatever rights we have, we're not going to give up those rights. So many people have said, I just want to give it back to you. You have it back. We're not ready to make that decision because basically that would mean we're giving up whatever rights we have under those contracts. So we will be assessing the decision process with that. As we see who chooses not to pay, and forever who chooses not to pay, I think it's just going to put an extra burden on those who choose to pay and the operation of the resort. And the final note I have is about the hurricane assessment and will it go up? Will it go up? Our view is no. I think that we look at building the resort up in stages. I think if we have this hurricane assessment and then a month later we come back and go and increase it by $200 a week, I think it creates a spiral to where then you have higher defaults, and it's just it's a circular formula if you're familiar with that in Excel communication, and it just doesn't get solved. So our view is the assessment, and we will. Excuse me.
Is the assessment adequate to build?
It's adequate to build 50 to 75% of the resort. It's adequate. The question was, is the assessment adequate? The assessment is sufficient to begin construction and build 50 to 75% of the resort. I think it's toward the 75. Excuse me?
At 50 to 75% of the resort built, when you have 100% occupancy in the past by owners, how much of the resort is it? I mean, what are we going to do with the reservation? I mean, if I put all this money in and I want to come, and unfortunately I have most of the next weeks. If somebody wants to come and there's only this much built, what do we do?
Well,
that's an issue.
it is an issue, and it's one we're going to have to address. If you have defaults, you're going to have those people that have fixed weeks that are defaulted. We'll put that in the pool. We're going to have those people. Some people that have some reservations they're going to walk away as well, probably. That goes back into the pool. And if we're short then we'll have to evaluate the best, fairest way to try to move people to another week, another time.
We have been at the Grand a long time. There has always been people from Club Regina staying at the Grand. You can't do that.
Well, we can. And here's how it happens. There are people that give up their week at the Grand to go to other Raintree properties, and that's an exchange. And so we get that week, and Raintree can use that week, and they've done so. It's just like any other exchange. It's like registry collection. Registry collection, if you put your week in registry collection, and the reason they suspended registry collection is because they can't use it. So an exchange program works basically on if somebody puts a week in and takes a week out, that they basically use that week. And that's what's happened, and that's why those weeks have been used. The other part of that is we, being Raintree, have 40 weeks. And we can use people and put people in those 40 weeks if we choose. So we don't do it unfairly, and we do it within the boundaries of what our ownership is, but that's how they get into the grant.
Going forward, if Raintree's paying what they have to pay, then they're able to use their weeks however they see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raintree, are you paying? Are you in?
Go ahead, sir.
You say our assessment is adequate, but that's based on how many paid assessment.
Yeah, the assessment is adequate based
We don't
on,
know.
No, listen.
well, the assessment as we know it today, based on people that are committed, hands down, get 50% of the resort. I think it's going to be 75, and it could go higher.
So we have 50%, you're hoping for 75, it's not 50 to 75.
Yeah. Mhm. I think we had a question over here. Yes, sir.
Prior to the hurricane, how had defaults been handled by the resort, and how will that change post-hurricane?
Prior to the hurricane, the question is, how were defaults handled prior to the hurricane? Prior to the hurricane, defaults were handled as follows. They were pulled into, everybody calls it an HOA. It's not an HOA, but let's just use HOA for vernacular purposes. They were pulled into HOA inventory and they were rented. They were resold. There were some people who walked away and had weeks that, from a marketing standpoint, Joanne said, I can resell. And if we could resell them, then we allowed those people to make the transfer if they absorb any transfer costs. So that's basically the three ways. We're not ready, as we said earlier, to give up our rights as it relates to those people that don't pay this assessment, because I think it's going to be more than looking at it from a case-by-case scenario and saying, well, can we sell this week or not? I think it's going to be such that it'll be large enough to where, maybe it could be 200 weeks. I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Gary?
Yes, sir.
No, I was going to say, if your question was, what did we do to try to collect? I can tell you, Bill Kruger worked extensively to collect every dollar he could, up to and including filing actions, impacting people's credit rating, that didn't pay. And he did a fabulous job, and he's going to be sorely missed. And we could use somebody to come on board at some point to assist in that process. Because if you don't put the pressure on, people think that they can ignore you. He kept the pressure on through every legal means. He worked with Rescom. He worked with our attorneys here in Florida and in Mexico to collect those monies. So as far as I'm concerned, anybody who doesn't pay, we're not going to change. Now, this is an unusual circumstance, but the reality is if we don't make a concerted effort to collect, our collections would be significantly lower, and our bad debt would be significantly higher. But because of the efforts that were put in by one of our board members, our I don't want to call it default rate or non-collection rate was 10%, 12%, something like that.
I think it might have been a little higher, but
maybe 50%.
We do make every effort to get people to pay. And we have, even in Mexico, it's been expensive. There's been some weeks that we've actually filed lawsuits in Mexico, and those legal costs have been covered through Joanne's sales efforts, and we'll see on the financials here in a minute. But it's an expensive process if you have to go to foreclosure, candidly. Yes, sir.
What does a resort that's 75% rebuilt look like?
The question is, what does a resort that's 75% rebuilt look like? We are looking at, not committing to this, but let's just, for example, we're looking at buildings 1, 2, and 3, and 5 and 7.
And then it would be
Tear the other ones down?
No, the exteriors will all be completed, so they'll all have windows. They'll be closed. And the amenities will be available. The pools will be open. The extent of the amenities will depend upon the occupant, how much we do rebuild. But Starwood will have food and beverage service. I don't know when they'll complete their restaurant, but they'll have some sort of food and beverage service. They'll have the pools, the amenities, and so you will just not be able to enter those rooms. Yes, sir.
If you'd had 100% participation, which I know you would get, with the assessment at the current rate, we go 100% of the resources.
Yes.
So the next question, did you look at it, if you're projecting that you're going to have a 75% participation rate, what that assessment number could have been, how much higher it had to be in order to rebuild 100% of the resort, because you've had economies of scale that double.
Well,
Did you look at that number?
yes. Let me see if I can repeat the question for those listening in. Basically, I think the question surrounds, did we look at alternatives as to how much the assessment would need to be to rebuild the resort? And we factored in a 25% default rate on the assessment. And with the assessment, with a 25% default rate and collecting 75% of that assessment, feel comfortable we can bring up 100% of the resort. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's.
No, I lost that, I'm sorry.
Well,
if the current number that, with the 75% participation, at the current assessment will allow you to build the resort back 50 to 75%.
No. The assessment, if 100% of the people, if 75% of the people pay, will be sufficient to rebuild the resort.
At 100%. Okay,
yeah. Because I factored in a 25%. I factored in a bad debt, a 25% bad debt.
Do you have any basis for your factoring of 25%?
Yes, I kind of looked. It's not a sophisticated basis. The question is, did we have any basis for factoring in the default? The answer to that question is yes. We looked at those contracts that are in default now, and obviously assume they're not going to pay. And then we looked at some that are greater than 2 years old, figuring they weren't going to pay. And then I increased that percentage because I don't know going past that how many are going to pay or not pay. I assume once you get through those two layers that a pretty high percentage will pay. Yes.
Gary, forgive me for asking questions that pertain more to owners, but it really affects my ability to go forward with a solid sales program. 2 questions. Number 1, will the assessments and contributions be divided based on categories or as 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom in the scheme of rebuilding? And so let me let you answer that while I remember what the other half of my question.
When we bring the resort up, the question is how will we allocate the rebuild between 2 and 3 bedroom units? We have 20 2-bedroom units and 12 3-bedroom units. Our goal will be to bring the resort up in that same percentage relationship.
Okay. And then my second question is, will the weeks that we are currently holding under the foreclosure type of category, will those weeks also participate in the assessments?
Well, they participate by virtue of the fact that they're factored into the bad debt.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's really my summary, which went longer than I anticipated. We have one more question.
I want to answer the question of the rebuild, 100%. Is there some thought to, once the numbers are in, is there any possibility of looking at raising the assessment now at one point when you have any other numbers we have where the owners might participate at a higher level to bring it up to 100%?
I don't mind. The question has there been any thought to raising the assessment once we know how many people are participating to where you can build 100% of the resort? I think we made a comment that we would not raise the assessment, but my answer to the question would be if a sufficient number of people said that I think we made the comment it's not our goal to raise the assessment. If the owners overwhelmingly want to pay more to get 100% of the resort, well, that'd be great. I don't want to. The thing we have to be careful of is making a comment and then it coming back to haunt us when we make the comment. So that would have to be really thought through and considered and really thought about how we communicate that. Go ahead.
So, can you paint the scenario for me? The bill comes, you pay all this money in, and how does rebuilding start? Since you have insurance money to start with, suppose the 75% of people that said that they were going to pay, now you only have 40%. what happens to our money? Do we lose that if the resort doesn't?
The resort is, the question is about when we start the rebuild. We're starting Monday.
Wow.
We have contractors engaged. We will use insurance money to start that process. We have commitments that are sufficient enough to what I view as getting at least 50% of the resort rebuilt. Yes, sir.
We have three factors here. You have Raintree. Oh, I know what Raintree is. You have Starwood. Starwood is a very important ingredient here. Because if they would start getting the restaurants back together, getting something back together, and people could see that, bring other people involved.
The comment is about you have Raintree, you have the owners, and you have Starwood, and the three-legged stool concept. Raintree has 40 weeks. I'm 99.9% sure they're going to write a check. Okay. Starwood, I can't comment, and maybe Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you because all these people want their amenities up when the resort opens.
Okay, so where we are right now.
Yeah, can we actually for this?
Sean, come up here.
So this is very
here.
important.
Yeah, everybody on the webinar wants to hear you. Come around behind, stand behind David.
Yeah, but don't.
So you can hear.
Uh-oh.
Just screaming to David's ears.
You don't spit on him, that's all.
I won't spit on him. I promise.
Usually my back is to the wall, but oh my God! All right.
All right, so right now where we are is we're in the claims recovery process and rebuilding process. So the only thing I can definitively tell you is when we reopen our restaurant is we're going to still stay with the same concept that was there before from a menu standpoint. Look and feel is probably going to be the same. It may change a little bit. The main thing we have to be doing now is we're working with our engineers, abatement experts, and everything else to get that property open. So we're looking at the grand side different than we are from the hotel side. So we're trying to manage that all as one piece, one contract, one contractor, and those things. But we are moving forward to rebuild that restaurant and reopen that restaurant. At what date? Right now, I can't tell you. I don't know. What I do know is when you guys are ready to occupy your villas, we're your partner. We're your property manager. We'll be ready to service your villas. So do I know what food and beverage is going to look like when you have one building open? No. But are we there to solve the problem on some food and beverage delivery service for you? Absolutely. But it's also a business that if there's one building open, chances are we won't go and be reopening a restaurant for 12 villas. We can't, business-wise, we couldn't support it. But you know what? Be able to provide some level of food and beverage delivery service on the pool decks and those things, yes.
But I just have a question. I mean, if we build this building and the restaurant's not built and is it going to be boarded up? I mean, what's it going to look like? Is that what it's going to look like?
Right now, that's what it looks like. Because okay. I mean, it takes a while to spec, order glass, and have glass delivered and installed. So.
Well, it takes a while to rebuild these buildings.
Yes. So we're going through that process now as well. And we've already had our design teams in there.
You are a very important ingredient in giving people a comfort level.
Sure.
Okay? You own the common areas. You don't want to own them? Give them back. The owners will do what they got to do.
Well, they own the commercial areas and they share in the common areas.
I think that Starwood has told us that they're going to rebuild the restaurant.
It's true.
Sean is committed. They're going to rebuild the restaurant. I don't know and he doesn't know if it's going to be ready September 1st. That's the question.
Right now, our target date right now for the hotel for the Grand would be September 1st. We hope to do that. Do I know if that's real? I don't know. I mean, until our contractors are in there turning screws and putting things up, I don't know. So.
But if Starwood would start, I mean, they got their insurance money. And if Starwood.
We're still in the claims process now. So you're looking at what was probably amounts to about a $50 million insurance claim.
It's not a separate restaurant.
Yeah, it's part of the. So we're doing everything we can. Our goal, yes, we will be rebuilding. We will be rebuilding Suerlo. We will be doing it. So at what point does it turnkey and open for everyone's usage? I don't have that date right now. Right now we're shooting for September. We don't know if that's going to be one tower, both towers, or where we go. One of the things that as Gary said, that changed in our world is our division is being spun off from our parent company. So our strategy as it relates to this particular asset, which will in the transfer would be whatever the new company's name is, would be a Starwood Vacation Ownership asset, that hotel, that our command as an independent company will be growth. So our growth plans for Mexico for this asset probably have changed or in the process of changing as well. What that is, I don't know right now, but it's probably going to be a lot more aggressive than in the past.
Question back here, and then there. Okay.
I just want to make a comment on the tour yesterday. I was major impressed that the pools are full of water and they are being cleaned, and it looked like we were swimming in them. That was a very, very positive sign.
I'm going to lay by the pool deck today.
You don't have a chair to sit on.
I'm bringing my cooler. I'm laying on the ground. No, that was one of the things when we actually came as soon as we could where it was safe after the hurricane and did our assessment. So, I was telling Wes, we went so far as to the structure is fairly complicated. We went so far as to I was there with one of our insurance guys and an adjuster writing on walls so we could depict accurately. So when they're assessing the claim, that they knew which bucket each piece fell in. So if you walked around yesterday and you saw some what was like graffiti saying SBO, right, condo master, that's why. Because we wrote with Sharpies on the walls to do that. So that's still there.
What comment or question here?
I forgot what I was going to ask.
Starwood owned the club. Who owns the club? Regina.
The
Braintree.
Braintree.
Yeah, we don't.
So, but the timeshare, so if the Westin becomes a timeshare, is it going to become like the Club Regina? Is that?
It's semantical. Timeshare is just a use plan. So, our typical use plans, depending on where you are weekly based ownership, deeded ownership. We have started developing a points-based product. In Mexico, we use an equity-based club product as well. But it's just, basically you're buying a week in a unit, which shares in a multi-jurisdictional system of properties.
Question right here.
I was going to ask, is the Westin no longer going to be a hotel, but a...
Right now, it's a hotel. And right now, the plans for the future is that it will be a hotel.
Oh,
but
yeah.
will that change? Yeah, it could change tomorrow. I don't know. So what we own or what we will own at the resort is the new entity, the new company in this spin-off transaction will take property ownership of the Westin Hotel. It will remain as a Westin Hotel currently. It's slated to reopen right now as a hotel. Anything's possible. So the possibility of building the vacant pads exists hugely, yes. Like Gary said, the chances of with this transaction that come to fruition are a lot better than they were a year ago. So and same thing goes with our analysis as it related to our involvement in the grant from a purchase perspective and those things. That could change as well. The hotel towers, we don't know. Right now, there's a lot of meeting space, a lot of banquet facility space there. It was a very strong group business hotel for us in the past. Hopefully that business plan is in place and remain the same, and it's a viable asset that way. But yes, there is analysis that would go on whether or not that could become. Would you take down all the property and turn it into a vacation ownership based product? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that if we are it's very hard for us to ask Starwood what their plans are because they're a public company, and as you know, a public company has disclosure issues and things, and they're not I can just tell you they're not. Our CEO has talked to their new CEO, and and he doesn't know the plans. So they're just not going to tell you. I mean, it's not that they don't want to tell you. They just can't tell
We
you.
just don't even know. I mean,
And-
really, it's anything.
I think we had a question back
Best
over here.
economic use is probably what's going to be in the end.
Did we have a question back over here? Nope.
I have one more.
Okay.
Aside from the restaurants and like that, do you know what your plans are for the paddleball court? All mushrooms that look like a city park.
It's done.
Yeah.
It will not be, right now the plans are, it will not be returned to a paddleball.
I mean,
Because David might beat me up next time I come on the property or have me killed.
what I would like to see,
For an hour and 15
yeah,
minutes.
all right, so I'll
Gotta
say it
keep
in
going.
30 seconds, being from New York. What I would like to see is some kind of a garden so that if people get 411, they have a garden view, not an elevator view. Okay? Something that looks nice and aesthetically pleasing. Okay.
Any possibility of putting barbecues there?
I don't think so because you have the 8 rooms right there, and the last thing you want is either noise or smells. We have the barbecue.
About 3 bedrooms.
Well, we have one downstairs. Don't forget,
Talk
we,
to Joanne. She can help you out.
we have a Weber downstairs. If you didn't know that, a Weber. Anyone can use it. Okay?
Is it still there?
Yes, we didn't lose the Weber. Okay.
Let's
But that's a fee, isn't it?
It's only $25.
And you get plates and service. Believe me, it's a bargain. Okay?
let's
It is a bargain.
I just,
okay, sure.
We're not.
I just want to say, I too, think it's really crucial that we, as interested homeowners here who have seen the progress so far, communicate to other, I'm saying homeowners, whatever you want to call it, so people that are interested in the property. We need to communicate a positive message to anybody out there that hasn't made a commitment yet, because it's going to make a huge difference to all of us regarding the kinds of amenities we're used to and the kind of experience that we have there. And if we're at 50% or if we're at 60%, it's not going to be at the same level of amenities as it would be if we were at 75 or 80. So I think before we leave today, we should have an action plan on how we're going to communicate that. That's my first comment. My second comment is I just want to say I'm really pleased with the progress that the board has made, and I want to commend you since you are a volunteer group. You've represented us very faithfully, and it's a huge, huge task, which I'm sure you never thought you were going to be taking on, except you maybe Gary. And I just personally want to thank you for taking it on and representing
Thank you. Let's, what I'd like to do is go through, and we're here as long as you want to be here, but maybe we go through and deal with the budget, the assessment, the maintenance fee, and the approval of the assessment. Get the agenda items out of the way. Let Wes get involved a little bit from a construction standpoint. It may work better from a Q&A perspective, but he can give you a little bit of an overview of what the resort we think is going to look like when it comes back. So if y'all don't mind, I think I would like to, the first thing I'd like to call up is our budget. And I want to talk about that. We raised some questions about the budget.
Can you print those out for us too?
They're in emails that you can link to and print. I mean, we don't have copies today. I mean, we'll be happy to talk to Josefina, and she'll send you this. That's fine. It's gone out multiple times. Somebody was efficient. Let's talk about. There's 3 sections to this budget. There's income, and let's defer income for just a moment, because it's basically solving an equation. The income is is A plus B equal C, and C is the income. We have expenses, and the expenses are 2 categories. We have the Starwood budget, and then we have expenses of this HOA. And let's talk about Starwood first. back in September 2015, Starwood came to our offices. With a very detailed budget presentation, and I'm not going to go over this budget presentation, but this is the detail that Starwood goes through when they meet with us to talk about the budget, their portion of the budget. And they talked about the budget change, and they did an analysis. They talked about all the various categories, and all this was distributed to everyone in emails. They talked about the per week equivalent, what it's going to cost. They talked about full-time employee equivalent. And so it's a very detailed budget that they put a lot of time and effort into preparing. And they met with myself, David was there, and Carla Sander. And we reviewed this budget with them, and we asked them multiple questions about the cost of their budget. And they made a few tweaks to this budget, and this is where they came out, and this was the original budget. And it talked about the various categories and where they increased and why they increased. Now, we had the hurricane, and we said we're shutting the resort down. And Starwood came back and did a further analysis, and they said, okay, depending upon when you bring the resort up, this will be your revised budget. And we selected July. And that would be the revised budget. I think it's going to run past July. For every month that we delay, you can see that you have about $1.5 million pesos, which is about $100,000 savings. We verbally, and Sean, you haven't got me this in writing yet, but we verbally agreed, so I'm going to say this and correct me if I'm wrong, but we verbally agreed that we would operate on a 60-day window. That if we give them 60-day notice that we want to start open the resort August instead of July or September instead of August, that they will shift this budget. That's our
Yeah, we so for all of you, it's not just, hey, when you start the day, you guys are ready to check in. Obviously, we have to go through a process from a hiring and training standpoint, getting that staff ready to service you the way you deserve, the way you and the way that follow that property. So, yeah, that's exactly right. So we need enough of a window as a management team to be able to.
Because they want, yeah, that what Sean basically said was he was in agreement with the comment that we're operating on a 60-day notice cycle. And the reason for that is they need about 30 days or that much, actually 60 days to begin the hiring process. So if we open the resort September 1 or August 1, we will shift this. We will save that money. It will revise our budget. Yes, sir?
If we open at 50%, how is that going to?
You know, that we need to work through with Starwood. What a reduced opening looks like. And one of the things we will do when we open the resort and choose the units to open is we will get with Starwood because they will have some comments regarding efficiencies and housekeeping and maintenance and things like that. So we will work through those issues with them.
So this is assuming
100
on July 1st.
100%. Yeah, right.
So obviously it's going to go down.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And these are also all in pesos.
Excuse me? These are in pesos. Yes. So with that two backup, I'll bring this up again. We developed our budget. And these numbers here in a high level are the July 1 projected reopening date. So some of the comments that people presented to us and their questions related on why we didn't have an overall greater reduction in the budget. Starwood's budget went down by 26%. Resorts projected to be closed 50% of the time. So people would say, well, why isn't the budget reduced by 50%. From a logic standpoint, that's not possible. Starwood went from 50 full-time equivalent employees to 14 during this shutdown phase. So they still have maintenance people. They still have a general manager. Y'all saw her yesterday, Liz. They still have limited housekeeping. So they still have security. So they still have all those functions to perform. And we challenged them on their budget reduction at a very detailed level. And that was what they could come up with.
Were you happy with what they came up with?
I was.
Yesterday on property, Liz told me that there were 5 people that cleaned out all those buildings, not 14. Maybe there's some security.
I think there's security, there's maintenance people. You're probably talking housekeeping. There's a general manager. Yes, ma'am?
Have they provided you with any payroll records or any type of records that document hours that these people that are, these 14 persons are doing,
Well,
what their job description exactly is?
Yeah, it's been actually part of the claim, insurance claim too. So there's been documentation on everything. It's part of your business interruption claim, is part of our business.
Yeah, there's been that part, but post remediation, we haven't asked for payroll records to say, well, do you have 14 people working on site? I mean, if y'all are asking me to do that, I'll be happy to get with Sean and actually Herman, who does the financial thing, and I'll say, please show me that these people are working on our behalf.
Sean, I'm worried about 14 people. My question is, what was your business interruption coverage? Was that part of, I mean, separate?
It's mainly that it covers the hotel loss more than anything else, rather than
income.
Yeah, so there's a minor fraction of it as it relates to our business unit side, but the major.
Oh, that's a lot enough.
Yeah, it's it's lost a lot.
So that's a major factor. Loss of income. That wasn't part of the 15 million.
Our policy is separate, so.
His policy is separate from our policy, and business interruption was part of the 15 million. And the rebuild cost is going to eat all the money. It's going to consume all the money. So then we have the portion of the budget that is not controlled by Starwood, and that's controlled by, I'm going to basically say, this de facto HOA. And it covers trust fees. They don't go down during the closure. It covers the reservation employees. That amount went down. Just so you know, our employees agreed to a 50% reduction in compensation while this resort is closed.
Did they agree, or were they forced?
They agreed. They agree. Well, severance would have been more expensive. Severance would have been more expensive. And had they not agreed to the reduction, I would have had to look at reducing the employee count. I would have had to look at reducing the employee count. The labor laws in Mexico are extremely complicated, and there's built-in severance. There's built-in severance. It's controlled by the law.
Yeah, but I believe that there's a difference if they quit or
No, it's built in. Well, first of all, employees in Mexico typically won't quit because of the laws of Mexico that provide their severance.
Well, that's exactly right. It's tied into their severance. They quit.
We would have to by law if they quit. If as a result of the closure of the resort, they quit and sought other employment, they would get severance. That's so. I think our employees should be commended for what they did.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And I'm happy that they did that. They didn't have to. There might have been alternatives, but they didn't have to, and everybody did it in a spirit of cooperation. The insurance is going up. That's based on your share, the Grand Regina share of the overall policy. In years past, that insurance was budgeted at much less than the prorated amount should have been. And that's just something that, what that does is it puts that subsidized amount, it really puts it on the burden of the Raintree Vacation Club members. And Brian Tucker did that, and I continued it, and I will just tell you that our CEO said that's not fair to the RVC members, and he's right. He's right. They paid the fair share of the insurance. Yes, ma'am.
What are the trust fees cover right? That's probably a really elementary question, but I don't, that's a big one.
Well, we have, based on the structure of the resort, we have 32 independent trusts that the units, each unit is in a separate trust. And they're, in Mexico, they're called, how do you pronounce that word? I never can. Okay. And all of those are 32 separate trusts. Individuals aren't allowed to own beachfront property. They have to go into a trust, and you have to hire a trustee to manage them. They don't do very much, candidly, but they get a lot of money. It's just the nature of what it is. We have tried, and we're in the position to go to another trustee. It's a complicated process. The fees would have been less. When you form your civil association, you should consider engaging another trustee at a reduced amount. So overall, I reduced marketing. Joanne, don't get alarmed. Don't raise your hand and don't ask questions. We'll have a comment with you later. And the reason I reduced marketing is Joanne needs to cover marketing costs through selling the real estate, and I don't think it should be part of the operating budget. So she will have marketing. She will have marketing capacity. We just don't know what that looks like at this point. And then I reduced because we are going through somewhat of a refresh of the resort with the rebuild, the addition to the reserve of $70,000. So that resulted in about a 25% reduction in the budget, in that portion of the budget. A plus B equals C. A plus B is Starwood plus the HOA expenses. C is the income. So we budgeted maintenance fees, bad debt, we reduced the rental income, we reduced the interest income based on the money that's the city invested, and that actually might be a little high. So what happened was we ended up with an overall 11 and 10.8% reduction in the budget, primarily because when we had the expense reduction, we had a corresponding income reduction that pretty much offset the savings. So now I will entertain questions on the budget process. Yes, sir?
Well, the dollar has strengthened significantly in the last.
Yes.
Since you did.
Yes.
So have you looked at that at all?
I didn't change it because I didn't think the actual weekly amount would go down that much. And I felt like any savings we got as a result of foreign currency would just fall to the bottom line. And ultimately, if you have leftover at the end of the year, it just is added to your reserve.
You got to understand.
10% more than when.
Yeah. No, the dollar. It's like a 15 now, and I think we use 13.5 or something. So I don't know what that would do with the maintenance fees, but I felt like, first of all, I'm not an expert in foreign currency, and I don't know what's going to happen to the dollar or what's going to happen as it relates to the peso over the course of the next 9 months. But any savings that we get in dollars as a result of strengthening the dollar falls to the bottom line.
So that's I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody was aware.
Yeah, right.
The bottom line is, as money comes in dollars, it gets immediately transferred and changed into pesos. So all the money that's coming in,
Michael, his point is right. I mean, it gets changed into pesos, but based on this budget, we pay 70% of the budget in pesos, so we get more pesos when we change the dollars. So we're gonna end up with more to the bottom line.
And I'm saying the benefit is because now is when the bulk of the money for all these assessments and fees are going to be coming in. So we will get the benefit of a stronger dollar.
Well, I understand that, but
Right.
there's gonna be a surplus
Yeah.
based on the
Correct.
exchange rate. It
Correct.
stays where it is.
Yes.
If there are people that are gonna be willing to say, you know what, take my weeks, I don't want to take them. How do you feel if people want to just take the weeks for free, just pay the maintenance and the assessment?
I feel I'm not going to commit to that. The question was for those at home, if people default, how do we feel about somebody coming in and stepping into their shoes and picking up the week for the maintenance fee and the hurricane assessment? I'm going to tell you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is I would be fine with that, but I don't think that. I think to be fair to those owners, I think we would need to, once we know the assessment, once we know the number, I think we would have to go back and somewhat poll the owners to say, here's a proposal that we would like to do to existing owners to pick up those weeks, and what's the overall view of that? No, absolutely. At this point, I would offer it to owners first. Yes, sir.
Could you legally do that? Transfer the ownership based on effectively buying out the old owner on the basis of.
I think the question is, can we effectively do that? And the way you do it is two ways you can do it. If an owner says, I'm not paying, and I will give my week to this couple here, and then they say I'll pay the maintenance fee, as long as they both agree, and there's no closing cost that comes to the owners, that's fine. The other way is you don't transfer the title, but since they've lost the use right, you just work up an agreement that would give them the use right. The defaulting owner would still have the ownership. They at some point in time could walk back in and say, I want to pay my assessment, but they would have to pay basically the assessment plus interest plus a penalty.
Right.
So, any other questions on the budget?
It's just, maybe it's not specific to the budget, but the same exchange rate type of question with regard to the insurance money that was received. Is that received in US dollars? Is that being converted also? Is that creating a 10% surplus for those type of numbers?
It's, the insurance money was, received in U.S. dollars, and one of the the contracts that we have entered into are in U.S. dollars, and we know that the contractors have some benefit to that, but I can assure you, based on me working with Wes, he will wiggle as much of that out as he can. We're going to use that to our advantage to get what we need. It would be. I wouldn't know how to enter into I wouldn't know how to do it differently to enter into a peso contract and have the monies in dollars. So yes, there's a little bit of that factor there, and we know what exchange rate they used, and so we know at this point they're going to have a pickup, and we're going to remind them of that every chance we get.
Very important thing, I think that so that we have a handle on everything, that the billing should go out immediately. You have to have a feel for who's in, who's out.
Totally agree. The comment was the billing should go out immediately as soon as this meeting is over and this budget is approved. We will contact ResCom immediately and begin the billing process.
My other question is, I know there are people that right now, for whatever reason, are financially strapped. How can we work with them to get them to pay to stay in? Is there going to be a grace period of, X amount?
We communicated in one of our emails that on the maintenance fees that we would consider 3 installments. Essentially, the first one due 40%, 3 installments of the maintenance fees due April 15th, May 15th, and June 15th. On the hurricane assessment, just to talk about that, we agreed 3 payments as well, 40% upon receipt of the invoice, 30% 45 days after the invoice is dated, and 30% 75 days after the invoice is dated. The reason for that is we have to pay our contractors as they go through the construction process. I do not know if this individual is interested in doing this, but I have been in communications with an individual who finances the short-term gap in timeshare. In other words, when you go to the timeshare, the developer normally will finance the project or the sale, and they'll want a down payment. This individual finances that gap, that down payment. I've asked him, he's not totally sure he wants to do it, but I at least have approached him about if an owner wants to enter into an arrangement with him from a financing perspective, would he be willing to do so? He has not got back with me on that. Yes, sir.
Are the assessment and the maintenance fees in email, are those financed?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
99.9% sure
What?
that Braintree's gonna pay their maintenance and assessment.
Yes.
I need to be 100% sure.
Excuse me?
I need to be 100% sure.
Well, I think it needs to be 100% sure as well, but I'm the president and not the CEO.
Well, what is that other 10?
I will have to review all of this situation with the CEO of the company, and he gets to make the decision.
Well, if you're in on it,
Excuse me?
if Braintree's in on it.
Good.
Me too.
That's okay.
It's my 3
I
weeks.
don't think that once again, I don't have the final approval of the CEO. But I don't think that we're going to walk away from 40 weeks at the Grand Virginia. I just don't. But he'll have a chance to just sit down with him and go, here was the communication from the meeting. Here's the view of the meeting. Here's, the positive vibes that we're getting from the meeting and from the tour yesterday.
Here's a question. Do you have floating weeks, fixed weeks? What do you want?
We have one Thanksgiving fixed and one Holy fixed and some prime weeks and value weeks all float. Yes, sir.
You said it earlier, you had 200 something commits.
Yes.
Contracts, how many weeks is that?
I don't know how many people that is. How many what?
Weeks.
Well,
I will send that out. There's an Excel spreadsheet that does contracts and weeks, so I apologize not counting weeks. I will send out an update that says these 222 contracts equate to this many weeks.
Right, but you did say they equate to 1 week.
Yes. Yeah. Let's finish up the budget. If there's no budget question, I'd like to call for a vote approving the budget. All in favor of approving the budget? Okay, and those opposed? Okay, I think that carries. Once again, when we're through, if you'll, commit on your proxy and sign it in, that'd be great. I've been talking for the better part of this meeting. I think I'm going to defer to the construction with Wes, because that's going to govern the assessment of the hurricane that I'd like to get a vote on and approval of. And so I'm going to open this up to construction. Wes, you may want to sit here. You might want to give a brief overview of the things you've been doing and how you're working with the contractors. I will tell you, the advisory board has been great in this whole effort. And Wes, as a construction expert, I don't think we would be where we are without Wes. So,
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
What do you think the timetable is, even though it's 99.9%, which makes me feel you put the extra percent? And I understand why you have to do a little bit of wiggle room. But what is the timetable to be able to definitively tell all the owners that Braintree is in 100%? Because in my mind, there's 3 components to this. There's owners, to start with, and Braintree at 40 weeks is the biggest block.
Yeah.
you need all those three things to align. So what's the timetable say?
I will try to get that answer Thursday when I return. Our CEO, I know, is traveling the next 9 days, and if I don't get it Thursday, then I will try to get it via email from him.
I think that's another one of those positive things that probably helps maybe for some of those.
Sure, absolutely. All right, Wes, I don't really know.
Let me give you a brief idea of some of the things we've done.
You may have to sit.
Gary's, but you got to get closer to the laptop.
I'm sorry, I gotta
Come
get
over here,
closer to
yes.
the laptop. That's the speaker there.
So, Gary kind of explained already the process.
So this is Wes Brown, who's a member of the board, who is also in charge of the reconstruction.
So Gary has explained to you already the insurance process. I have to say I'm somewhat new to that, and it was pretty painful and agonizing, where I'm arguing with insurance companies about hangers that need to be replaced, and are they rusty, and it was just very petty. But we reached our goal for policy limits, and that was a very good thing. So let me tell you, during this process, we have been working with a number of different companies. Two of them were extremely high. We've whittled it down to two companies that will each do a portion of the work. One of the companies is going to be doing the exterior repairs to the outside of the buildings, stucco repair, painting, roofing, railings that broke through, and also the windows. The windows, to my standpoint, are critical. Let me tell you that this contractor is now on site. He has started work over at Club Regina last week, and he will be starting work at the Grand Regina this week. He is also doing electrical and mechanical repairs that are needed. The good news is there was no structural damage to the buildings. It is all surface on the exterior. The windows that he will be doing, we had 22 of the patio doors that I think most of the owners love. 22 of those units failed and blew in. And once the hurricane rain and winds were able to blow into the unit, it instantly put pressure inside the ceilings and blew out all the drywall ceilings. Light fixtures are hanging, fans were hanging, and that's what really caused the bulk of the interior damage. So my plan is to put in better windows, better glass for the ones that failed, but I do plan on replacing all of the patio doors, even the ones that did not fail. Because if there is another storm that hits us, I think that can prevent a lot of damage. I would love to put hurricane shutters on the buildings, but it's just not in the cards for the dollars. Hopefully the new glass doors and the new laminated glass that we plan to put in will be a much greater improvement. The second company we have hired is the company that did the remodeling. And I think most of you that are here today saw yesterday in our walkthrough at the property the new kitchens that were done. And I'm very happy with this company. They're called IMM. By the way, the other company that's doing the exterior work is a company called Boreoli. They are out of Puerto Vallarta. And I have very good vibes and feelings about working with them. I'm also happy to work with IMM, who did our renovation previously. They have done other work. They are based in San Diego, but they have offices in Guadalajara. The bulk of their work they do is in Mexico, the Caribbean, and also the States. What I like about them is the quality of workmanship. They have a crew of people that they just don't hire locally when they come into town. They bring their people with them and they get housed here. So we have a steady crew, they have a steady crew of a known entity of people, and I'm most concerned about workmanship and quality of the product. So I have very good feelings about it. And let me also point out that the renovation to the interior, every unit has a different problem. We have 5 kitchens, unfortunately, that need to be totally replaced. We have another 5 kitchens out of the 32 that we're going to be replacing cabinet doors and fronts. And the other kitchen cabinets all survive very well. But each unit has a different shopping list of how to repair it. So you really need somebody who can't just come in mass production, because it's not. It's a renovation. Everything is different in every unit.
But you're not replacing everything.
I'm sorry?
Because you're not going to replace it.
Because we're not going to replace anything. We are only replacing what was damaged that needs to be replaced. Yes.
The fourth building, were the kitchens renovated in that building?
I'm sorry. The
fourth building.
Building
Number
4?
Yeah. Building
Yeah.
4. Were the kitchens replaced in that building?
The building 4 survived the best.
I know, but that's the building that they're not going to open.
That is the building that I am presently planning to open last. So we won't deal with building 4 until we have 100%.
Well, can we take whatever we need from there to fix the kitchens up and so?
Not really. The only thing you can take is some of the furniture. It is my hope. I'm sorry?
The new kitchens.
The new kitchens, you can't take kitchen cabinets from one place to another. By the time you get them off the wall with the granite on the granite, it turns into junk. So building 4 is the building probably I will do last. I will tell you there are 4 units there that are in good condition, that are certainly could be used right now for housing guests. Right now they're housing the construction company guys on site, which is what we did last summer. I am trying to keep the percentage of 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms the same proportion that we currently have. So at a 50% level, that would bring back 4 buildings. At a 75% level, we're talking bringing back 6 buildings. My current game plan is, and by the way, IMM is also on site. They are starting at the club this week as well, and they will be starting at the Grand next week. They have to kind of follow the exterior guy. My plan right now at a 50% level is to rebuild buildings 1 and 2, which house 2-bedroom units, and buildings 5 and probably 7, which are the 3-unit buildings. Those are, I think, typically the units that most of the owners prefer to be in. If we can then go to 75%, we would probably pick up building 3, and then we would probably pick up building 8. That would leave building 4 and 6 to be done, and hopefully in time we can do those as well. One of the other changes I am making is, again, let me go back to percentages. In the master bedroom, we ripped out approximately 20 wooden floors out of the master bedrooms and bathrooms and the outside decks. A lot of owners have complained about those floors. They get scratched, they're hard to maintain, and they're not practical for this environment. So it is my intent to put in porcelain ceramic tile that looks like wooden plank floors.
Slip proof, right?
Slip proof.
Okay.
Well, slip proof is a word, but it has there's no guarantees. But it has it looks like wood graining in the ceramic tile. So it does have a little bit, it's not slick. It's not going to be like the living room. That is not slick proof. So my hope is to do that in all of the units, even the wooden floors that survived, to take them out and change that. I think you now have a permanent solution for the future, and that's my hope there. So we are also trying to do some upgrades, such as the windows that have to be replaced. We're not going to replace all the windows. We're only going to replace the ones that have failed, with the exception of the jacuzzi deck opening doors.
Did you, by chance, get a price for storm shutters?
No.
Repeat the question.
Did we get a price to install storm shutters? We did not. And one of the reasons we did not, it would be a very difficult installation to do, because we'd have to rip open all the ceilings out on the jacuzzi decks to put the roll-up that goes there. I'm in favor of storm shutters, by the way. I would love to put them in. Looking at the budget numbers, I just don't think at this time we can do it. I hope down the line. It would be my recommendation to put in storm shutters. I will tell you the houses that are on the right side of the swimming pool, a lot of those houses survived very fine, but the majority of them had hurricane shutters.
Right, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The fabrics in the bedroom, the covers and the curtains and all that, said they were not going to be replaced. Is mold a factor in that?
Can you?
Well, first off,
repeat the question.
Yes, the question is about the fabrics and mold that occurred during the hurricane that was caused afterwards. You have to bear in mind, after the hurricane, the windows blew in. You're in a hot period of time. We have no air conditioning. The chiller system was down for probably a month to 2 months without any air conditioning on the property. We didn't have power for 3 or 4 weeks. So we definitely had some remediation issues. That was taken care of initially by cotton, and then we boarded up. All of those fabrics and all of those cushions have been thrown out. They are gone. The only products that still remain are some wood products at the very base of a cabinet that was treated. We had some drywall issues. It got all ripped out. So we do not want to have any mold issues in the future, and I think everything was pulled out. When we pulled out the wood floors, we tried to salvage as much of the vanity and makeup powder tables that were in the bathrooms, as well as the millwork that was in the master bedrooms. All of those millwork items sit on the wood floor. So to get the floor out, you had to take that stuff out. Because some of them sat on the wood floor that was wet, some of the legs got a little stained, damaged. If we could salvage it, we're going to refinish all of that stuff. So it will look like new. We are also trying to upgrade the dining room with new furniture and chairs in the dining room. It will then have a matching granite top that matches the kitchen, that matches the corner table. You may have noticed we also put quartz around the couch last summer, as opposed to the wood cap that was around the couch. And obviously all those cushions are going to be new that were damaged. The same thing with the window treatments.
We have one question here. Why not just put marble throughout?
Well, I don't, certainly the cost to replace all of the stone floors would be very excessive. And I just don't think we can't afford to rebuild the resort now, much less rip out all the floors.
Possibly is to, instead of the wood-looking ceramic tile in the bedroom, why not continue it to look like the limestone?
The designer felt strongly that the wood anchored those rooms. It ties back to the jacuzzi deck and matches in there with the door. Again, my goal here was to redesign the property. We had a master plan last summer that everybody voted on, and I'm trying to stick with that same coloration, that same design, that same style. Because to go through that whole process, we wouldn't be able to get the property back up and running as
Well,
fast.
I think that's the answer to that question. I think that's really what they're asking.
Not changing.
So that's kind of my overview. And I'm open for questions. Yeah.
Are you bonding the contractors?
Bonding in Mexico is a very different animal than getting a performance and payment bond in the States. We have, to get a performance and payment bond in Mexico is like unheard of, and it is a huge fortune. We are going to proceed with one contractor to take out it's a type of surety bond on a portion of a deposit money that we're giving out up front in order for him to get going, which is also a common practice here in Mexico. So that money that is out until we get waivers of lien back in will cover that gap.
But you're gonna have a holdback on the whole project, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're gonna have a holdback of money.
That is something that we are negotiating. Retainage in Mexico is not done.
Really?
Really.
Well, let's start.
It's yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Let's
Right.
start.
So, the fact is, we have to send them a check. We can always hold back the payments, and we can get into an argument, and we can fight. Gary's controlling the money.
Well, let me say on the one contractor out of PV, Raintree has been involved with this contractor for probably 10 years, and we have a financial situation with them at this point that I guess the old saying of those that have the goal make the rules. In our existing relationship, we have the goal. And so if he messes up on this contract, he knows what's at stake with the other arrangement we have. In fact, he even admitted it. And we have good experience with IMM. And so the final thing is we will be making progress payments. And as Wes said, we have a situation where they begin to not perform adequately. We'll address that before we continue making progress payments.
There's a question here about the electrical. Will there be upgraded electrical outlets so that there is adequate duplex outlets throughout to charge devices, phones, cameras, laptops, etc.? Right now, there was only one duplex outlet in an entire two-bedroom unit. There needs to be more duplex outlets.
I'm not sure I would agree with that, but there were more duplex outlets installed in the corner table in the living room last summer. That was a single outlet, and that's been converted over to a duplex. So, but other than that, what was there before is what we're going to maintain.
This might be for you, Gary. Is it reasonable to assume that eventually, around years, 100% of the resort will be restored? Because if your assumptions are right, let's say they're not right, and we only get 50% of the assessments in the first go around. The ones that default, you're ultimately going to resell sometime to get enough money to restore the rest of the buildings. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Well, I think it's a reasonable assumption. I think it's definitely our plan. And the question is, is it a reasonable assumption that eventually 100% of the resort will be restored? I think that is a reasonable assumption in our plan, and we'll do that by multiple ways. First of all, maybe existing owners. Second, trying to market those weeks through Joanne and her sales efforts. And then thirdly, communicating with those individuals, and there are those individuals in addition to owners who might want to pick up a significant number of weeks. And, that third option has issues associated with it because you end up with one owner that maybe is larger than Ranger. I don't know. And that can have its own repercussions and some things we'd have to look at. And we'd have to work through with that person that wanted to pick up a significant position in the resort, make sure that they don't use that to reduce the influence of all the owners that are there today.
Yes.
Can you take a vote in this room of the owners that are on the fence? I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but there are on the fence.
Are you asking?
We've been here.
Are you asking for us to get a show of hands of who's going to participate? Well, the first thing is
If they object, then
we were going to ask for that anyway. We were going to ask to approve the assessment by virtue of that you're going to see. So I'm ready to ask for that vote now if you want me to.
How much is it per week again?
It is
Let me give you your chair back, and I'll get up.
Yep. It's $2,275 for a 2-bedroom and $2,875 for a 3-bedroom. It's $2,275 for a 2-bedroom, $2,875 for a 3-bedroom. And if y'all are ready to vote, I'm ready to take it.
I just have a quick, so
Sure.
who votes Raintrees? We don't have permission to say Raintrees when I do.
Huh? I'm
So
not.
Raintree doesn't participate in this vote?
I think it carries anyway. I think you have, without Raintree, you have, no, I can approve the assessment. I'm a paid up member. I've paid my maintenance fees. Anybody who's paid up based on 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're.
So voting for the assessment doesn't necessarily.
Voting for the assessment doesn't necessarily.
Answer the question to this lady,
Yeah,
who's actually going to pay the assessment.
Well, I mean, voting for the assessment is an indication. Yes, sir.
After touring yesterday, it's obvious that the bulk of the expense is in the kitchen, living room areas and most of the units. The bedroom, good size, mostly still have ceilings, and there was actually furniture in there that was not damaged whatsoever. So it's kind of difficult for me to understand the difference between 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom. Can you walk us through
Yes.
how that number got?
We have 22 bedroom units and we have 12 3-bedroom units. And the question revolves around how did we come up with the number for the assessment of a 3-bedroom unit versus the assessment of a 2-bedroom unit. So we have 22 bedroom units. We have 12 3-bedroom units. And we added up the square feet of each unit, the living area, bedroom 1, and bedroom 2 for a 3-bedroom, the living area, the extra bedroom for a 2-bedroom. And we took the total square feet of the 2 bedrooms, and we took the total square feet of the 3 bedrooms, and we proportionately allocated that much of the construction to the 2 bedrooms and that much to the 3 bedrooms. And then we took that number divided by 20. And we took the 3-bedroom number divided by 12. And so it worked out that the assessment, the square feet of the 2-bedroom units is 57% compared to 43, I believe. However, when you divide the number by 20, you get a lower, you have a lower denominator, so you have a lower maintenance fee for the 2-bedroom. So that's how we did it. Yes, ma'am.
If you have more than one contract, do you fill out more than one ballot? How does that work?
By owner or is it by contract?
I think that how you do a ballot covers all your
Weeks
contracts.
are represented by a non-divided interest of the unit. So, for example, if you own one unit, you own 1.92% of the unit. So you have to multiply 1.92 times your weeks, and that number is the number that I put in the ballot. So,
But Marcel, I think her question is, does she fill out, if she has two contracts, does she fill out two proxies? And I think the answer to that is just one. One proxy covers all your ownership. So I get, yes, sir, go ahead.
Someone who owns 10 weeks has no more voting power than someone who owns 2? Of course.
No, I think, yes, they do. Yeah, someone that owns 10 weeks has more voting power, but it depends upon what trust they're in. And the votes are by trust. So you have 32 trusts comprising the 32 units, and you have ownership in each trust. And so it depends. If you have 10 weeks in trust 1, which is unlikely, then you would carry 10 out of 52 weeks. If you have 10 weeks and it's spread over trust 1, 2, 3, 4, then that's how that gets.
How are those divided up?
I don't understand that. Trust 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, there's 32 trusts, and each trust is one unit. We have 32 units.
I have 2 contracts.
Yes.
How do I know if they have 2 ballots?
One ballot covers both of your contracts.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I think that's what's covered by the condo regs. I mean, but your vote goes into the respective trust that the contract represents. So if you have a contract that's in trust 1, for example, and a contract that's in trust 2, and you turn in a ballot, then she splits that vote between the 2 contracts you have. How you chose to vote on your property.
If you can default on one contract, how would they not be separate contracts?
They are separate, but nobody's defaulted yet. You cannot vote. You cannot vote if you're not paid up to the 2014 maintenance fees.
Yeah, okay, and the people that are, and have multiple contracts.
Then they can vote.
They
can
If
vote.
they're paid up, they vote.
Someone has asked, can you repeat again the maintenance per week, the assessment per week?
Yes. The question is, can I repeat how we came up with the 2
No,
bedroom?
not how much, just how much it is.
Oh, how much is the assessment? $2,275 for a 2 bedroom and $2,875 for a 3 bedroom. And by the way, that percentage wise is about the same percentage that the maintenance fees are between a 2 and a 3 bedroom. Yes, sir. Well, his hand was up first. Yes.
I have a question regarding the fact that these are 32 separate trusts relative to the buildings that are brought up for reconstruction. Is there any concern about an owner that would have an interest in building 8 and it's not being rebuilt when it's transferred, when it's sale, or anything down the road when that building was not completed in some way?
What you do is you have ownership in a particular trust, and you give that up in exchange for the right to use the resort, and you don't have any say-so on which unit you're going to go into. Over here.
I think that not having this delineated per contract is not a good idea. For example, we have 2 contracts. One of the contracts has value weeks and something that we're not really interested in. We may want to give up one of our contracts and keep the other contract that has fixed weeks. For your planning purposes and for everything that you need, I think you should know whether people are voting yes for one contract or all contracts. I don't think you can plan as well if you do not know that specifically.
I totally agree with that, but that's not what we're doing. We're approving the assessment. Yeah.
Is it important for me having 2 contracts to know if I'm in 2 separate trusts? How do you know that?
Trust, Marcella, your trusts are by unit. Each
Yes.
individual unit's a trust, so that's where it would be.
So both mine.
Building, unit number, that is, each 32 is an individual unit, is a trust.
We can tell you which.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, we can tell you which. Yeah, we can tell you which unit.
She knows exactly which
Yeah.
side she's got.
If you-
She needs that to actually facilitate those.
And the documents that we gave people, it's all in there.
Well,
Or some
yes.
No, we still don't have our deed. Does everybody have their deeds?
When did you buy?
We're the third buyer.
Reconstruction.
Well,
But,
yeah.
but did you complete all your KYC information and all the process? So maybe Josefina has it because you have already been designated and you are proper owner. with all the right
We will, if you will send me an email personally, I will get Myra and we'll get Marcella and we'll figure out what's up. Well, I don't know the issue, and if you'll send me an email, I will commit to trying to find out the issue and giving you an answer. So, thank you. Do you have my email address? Okay, great. Any other questions? Do we want to take a show of hands on who's in favor of the hurricane assessment and the rebuild project? Okay. Motion carried. I'm going to address a few questions that we got over email via the webinar. I'll try to hopefully get all of these.
Gary, can I ask
I'm just forwarding you a few.
just a question about the vote?
Yes, sir.
How, if most of the owners voted by proxy, and we just raised the hands with some 20 of us that are here right now, that we passed something, that doesn't seem to me to be reasonable.
Well, we have the proxies, and basically the proxies that Marcella counted carry basically 100% of, almost 100% of those proxies voted in favor of it. So we're just confirming what people by proxy have already voted on as well.
Okay, so what you're saying is the people that have that proxy right just voted in favor. So we didn't.
Yes, yeah, they either voted in favor of it by sending their proxy in with the check, or they gave the proxy to either David Zell in some cases or me. And so basically, all those proxies that we received are approved, and then you're going to turn in at the end of the meeting, you're going to sign your ballot and turn that in, and then we'll tally it up. But I think that we're getting a show of hands that basically people in this room who came to the meeting, who viewed the property, are basically saying they're going to at least approve the assessment. I don't know if they're going to pay or not. I have no way of knowing if people are going to pay. We do have a commitment of those that are going to pay.
How many proxies, do you know how many proxies you guys have?
I don't know.
Oh, yes, already like 65.
65.
65.
Yeah, and please remember that at the end of the meeting, I need your ballot duly executed by both owners, if you jointly have a co-owner, and if you can write down very clear your name, because sometimes it's difficult to read for us your names, I would appreciate it.
Let me go over some questions. Why is Master Common Starwood, and why is 2015 budget so much higher than 14? I think we answered that. We went over that. We did detailed review of the Starwood budget with Starwood. They had increases, just like a lot of people in their budgets over the years have increased. I do know in Mexico, labor is a big component of the services Starwood provides. It's almost basically a mandatory 3 to 5% pay raise in Mexico. And they've had other increases. Once again, they did a detailed review, very, very comfortable with that. So let's see if I can address another one. It's hard for me to do. Let me get on my.
We have to deal with conflict of interest.
Yes.
Yeah. Forward it to Gary, forward it to me.
You need to sign it accordingly. This paperwork here.
Well, I can do that out of the trust and also of the trustee, which I think you are, no?
Right.
And so only put me your right name, or it would be better also to put the name of the trust, better for me.
Okay, another question from writing in is, at the very least, owners should know the damages for building. Can this be shared? Yes, Wes has done a breakdown by building. When he gets back in, we'll let him review that.
Sure.
Yes, sir?
Related to that, is there any way to give us an idea, just roughly, interior damage versus exterior damage? Like what percentage of the damage was interior versus exterior?
Yeah, Wes can share that.
There's one I just sent you that came from Elizabeth Brockway.
There's something about conflict of interest. If you want to respond to that now.
Oh, well,
Sorry.
Wait, just let me do it.
We have in summary, we have a comment from an owner that wants to give their proxy to someone other than David Zale or myself, and they don't want to rebuild the resort, and they want to sell 100% of the resort. I don't think that's a practical solution. I don't care. It's fine for them to give their proxy to someone if anybody wants to entertain taking it. But I don't think it's practical because there's so many people that have, in fact, expressed their desire to rebuild, and then they've lost confidence in the management of the resort. And my suggestion and comment on that is form the civil association, become independent, get your board of directors, hire a residential administrator, and Raintree is more than happy to back out of the way.
What did they say?
They've lost confidence in the management, which basically I'm assuming, a very lengthy email, I'm assuming that means Raintree. I don't think it means Starwood. Starwood just provides services. So it's either Raintree or the advisory board. And I can tell you, first of all, once again, form a civil association, and Raintree will resign. We're not
One person.
Excuse me?
This is just one email.
It's one email, and it's, and I respect people's opinion, and they have the ability to have that view, and so there's nothing wrong with their view. I just think it's not practical to sell 100% of the resort. There's too many people that want to participate in rebuilding the resort.
I agree.
I'm not sure I know what that means.
So they're saying that it's a conflict of interest when you have a board member now being the construction manager. That's what you really dealt with it, but that's in that email.
They also, that email indicated they were concerned that we have a board member that is acting as the project manager and compensated. And I will tell you that I disclosed that in an email very early on, and I will say beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's the best money that has been spent on this project by engaging Wes Brown, and the owner that expressed that is entitled to their view, and I as an owner am entitled to mine, and I'm glad that we've engaged Wes, and he's done an outstanding job. Yes, sir.
This is not an indictment at all, so please don't take any offense. But my wife is an insurance professional and has every opportunity when she deals with contractors to go online and get background information, etc. She could not find anything on you personally, and she does it day in, day out. And can you tell us why that is?
Well, if you want, I'll give you a copy of my resume. I work for Turner Construction.
Well, why don't you give your background? I think that is helpful for everybody.
I can't tell you why I'm not online. Is that what I heard?
If you Google you and all of the other ways of looking at your history.
I cannot tell you that, but I'm really happy about it. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I work for Turner Construction, which is an international firm, for approximately 10 years in Philadelphia and in Chicago. And also Washington, D.C. I then worked for what I would call a mid-sized contractor called Ben Bornstein and Company, changed to Babco Construction in Chicago. And I worked there until we closed up that business for 37 years. I served ultimately as the executive vice president. I worked my way up the ranks like most people do. I opened up an office in Las Vegas in 1989 for Babco, and we were there for 11 years and did nothing but hotel renovation. We closed that thankfully before 2001, and we brought all our profits back to Chicago. And we really closed it down so we could focus more on Chicago, because with staff being back and forth, it kind of got split, and we needed to focus on home base. We ultimately closed the business voluntarily in strength, and I retired a couple of years ago. So I don't have an extensive background in terms of how many people I've worked for. It's only been 2. But I've had a lot of years in the business. Babco did one of our major things we did was hospitality work, hotels. We have renovated Hyatt hotels, Hilton hotels, DoubleTree, every major chain. We also do new construction. We have done 35 nursing homes through the years. We have done factories. We have done a bunch of synagogues. We've done a couple of churches. We've done playgrounds. We've just about done everything. And I'm glad I'm not online.
I reviewed Wes's construction background and resume as well before he was engaged. And based on his work on the renovation project, which he did a very good job of keeping the contractor in line, I was very comfortable that that was a very good decision to make. It says, I am hearing Starwood Weston may have transferred ownership of the hotel to another entity. If this is true, it is critical that we are told how this might affect us in all respects, including as our property manager, future conversion of the entire property, their interest in buying our property in whole or in part. I think we addressed that in several comments through the meeting, but let me summarize. Starwood is doing a spinoff of its timeshare business into a separate public company. So they will have 2 public companies, and I presume the shareholders of Starwood will now be shareholders of SVO. Starwood, the new Starwood, or SVO, will continue to operate and be the property manager for the resort in the same capacity that they have been in the past. There will be no change to that. And that is currently being provided, those services are currently being provided by the hotel division. Whether that stays with the hotel division or moves to the SBO entity, I don't know, but I think some of that's going to be dependent upon how the Weston flows. How that impacts their desire to purchase the resort or parts of the resort, I don't think that impacts that decision at all. I think it's going to be a business decision that they make. I will tell you that as a public company, SVO is going to be a timeshare company and a fractional company, and they're not going to be a hotel company. And there's 2 different models of that business. One is asset intensive by developing property, and a hotel is asset light by having someone else develop the property and branding that property as a Weston or any number of their other brands. The hotel division will be asset light. Timeshare division will be asset heavy. They understand that. So I presume that for them to grow, as public companies are challenged by their shareholders to do and provide a return, that they will have to have a growth cycle to that business, which I can see benefiting the Grand Regina. I don't know if that's totally true or not, but that's speculation. Yes, ma'am.
Prior to the SBO, was the Weston owners franchised by Weston or actually owned by certain?
It's an owned property.
It wasn't?
It still is.
But it wasn't for a long.
Yes, for a long time.
There's another question. I've had 2 questions actually, or 2 have come in about the budget and hurricanes. And here's one. What provisions are being taken to ensure that the property has some sort of hurricane protections? Presumably that means some kind of reserve. My decision about staying involved would be based on the costs as we move forward, and thus far in this meeting we have covered the past in construction. If what I have heard so far carries forward, I see substantial increases in the future. How will this be managed into the future? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that I think
we have. Do we feel that we have adequate reserves for this kind of situation? Again, I mean, adequate is $5 million or more, but that's.
I don't know how. Let me answer the question this way. I don't know what a definition of adequate reserves are. Up until we had a hurricane, the likes of which the Cabo area has not seen in 40 years, I would have said absolutely. We had adequate reserves because we had hurricanes and we always reopened within a day. It's entirely dependent upon what the owners want to do and how much reserve they want to start putting on the balance sheet. And to the extent that they want to increase the reserve, then it will increase maintenance fees.
Absolutely.
To the extent, and at this present time, which I don't have an answer for, we are working with the insurance company to see if we can increase the coverage and buy down the deductible. I don't know what that looks like, but right now I can tell you that's a very expensive proposition. Once again, can increase maintenance fees. That's the only way I can answer that question because I can't speculate in the future. Yes.
Can Wes comment sometime from room about the interior versus exterior cost of rebuild and damage?
Yeah, can you?
As it relates to my questions, I wonder if there's some way to just minimize that again with the cost of something like the hurricane shutters. If it was significantly interior and you had something like that, it's in a way self-insuring. And I'm just wondering what the relationship is.
Just mention hurricane shutters.
Repeat the question.
People know what the question
Well,
is.
why don't we do this on the hurricane shutters? We did not get a quote, but I suspect, I don't want to speak for Wes, but I suspect you can get one.
Yep.
We'll get one and we'll pass that on to the owner.
No percentage of interior damage though? No percentage was interior versus exterior?
Yeah, absolutely do.
But Wes, was it the lack of hurricane shutters, or was it the balcony?
I think the main reason we had so much damage is those big 10-foot 6 doors that open wide open. And I think if you've all stayed in those units when the wind was blowing just a little bit, those doors would start rattling away.
I will tell you at the club, we had shutters on our sales room that blew out 100% of the windows.
We didn't have shutters at the hotel, but there's not some last things left. All of the property, it was a pretty devastating event.
I just want to say there's, if you can believe it, a kind word for Raintree from one of the owners. First, this is regarding Wes. I echo my appreciation for his efforts. I wish others would stop looking a gift horse in the mouth. I also have an appreciation for Raintree. Can you imagine? No one should have to stand in front of a group and take the grief. I would be sorry to see them depart. Gary has done a great job, I must say. What a difference.
I got to tell you,
Could have been Brian sitting up there.
The expertise Gary and Raintree has brought, not just as an administrator, but through this whole hurricane process with the insurance. I mean, he's got accountants, he's got lawyers, he's got all kinds of people, and we pay them hardly any money. I can't tell you how phenomenal a job he's done.
20,000.
20,000 a year.
Let's get to a few more questions. It says, I own a 3-bedroom unit during the holiday Christmas, New Year's period. My question is the following. If we only collect 50 to 75% rebuild, will all the current 3-bedroom owners today who are current on their dues be able to be assured that they get to use their week? I will have an update on that to better identify that once we know who pays. But as what will happen is, as you have those that do not pay, you will have people that will default on those weeks as well. There are people who own those fixed weeks that will walk away. And so until we have all of that information, I don't know. I hope the goal is that nobody loses the ability to use the week. And but I can't give a definitive answer at this point. There's only, if 75% of the resort is rebuilt, and we have more reservation than that, we'll have to come up with an alternative solution.
I'm just curious, did you get this note from Brockway?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, that we addressed, and I'm going to talk to her. I've known her for a long time, as have you.
That's what we were talking about.
I'm going to talk to her
And
afterwards.
I'd really like to not, that's what we were addressing. I'd rather not use a name if possible. I think people are absolutely entitled to express their comments, concerns, opinions, and that's why that's why we come together. And so I don't want to dissuade that, but I don't necessarily agree with those, and it's okay because I can express my comments as well. Yes, sir.
I'm assuming there must be an overabundance of people out there once they're thinking about walking away from this because they're owning property in Mexico and live in Canada or the United States, that maybe they can just walk away with no repercussions. I don't know that to be the case or not be the case because I haven't considered walking away. But maybe if you do know what type of repercussions, what kind of legal measures, if any, can be taken, it would motivate more individuals to be more responsible with their ownership here, rather than thinking that they could just walk away.
The comment is that if owners were more aware of what the legal what the grant can legally do to those people that do not pay, it might incentivize those that are not planning on paying to pay. And I don't disagree with that, but that's something we're going to run through legal, and we'll have a comment back on that. But I want legal's input on that before we make I know one thing, we're not going to give up any rights by just saying, okay, you don't want to pay, give me your week. That's not going to happen. But I don't know what legal's going to tell me at this point. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm from Canada, I don't think any Canadians are gonna walk away. I mean, have you seen the letter?
I just use that as an example because I figure most of the owners.
I got to ask the question.
I can fill in.
Maybe with the TV service we have, most of them are from Mexico.
Let me also say we are hopefully improving
Did I get
Wi-Fi and TV
Yeah,
service. We're switching cable companies in all probability. Unfortunately, you're going to have a lot more English-speaking stations. You'll have to put up with that. I know a lot of people like coming here and hearing the Mexican Spanish news. What can I tell you?
Let's answer the question from the back. Basically, this is a breakdown of the construction. What I'm looking at, what the monies will potentially be spent on. The exterior, we've estimated about $850.
Yeah.
The interior is 2.7. That's construction.
Right.
Contents is about 1.2. We've got some contingencies built up.
Right.
We've already spent the 552 remediation. And we have 488 that we would like to use to upgrade the resort that's not covered. And then we have some miscellaneous other costs, which is essentially some of, we had a forensic accountant and we had Wes's consulting services.
So it looks like the majority of it was definitely inside.
Yes.
It was all inside.
Yes.
Westfield with the plastic spaces, I know he wanted to do a hurricane fund, but for budget reasons, he couldn't take it that far. He's doing tempered glass or plastic. Could you go over that a little?
Sure. Again, it's my belief, and most of the construction guys believe it. I think most people believe that the main damage we had was when those doors blew in. That's when we had the damage. So what my intent is to replace all of those patio doors, and we will replace them with sliding doors that will open up approximately a little over 5 feet wide. Unfortunately, we're just not going to have that big wide open space that a lot of us like. These doors were then naturally anchored in a track top and bottom. They're also smaller panel doors because you're got 5 feet that gets split because the door is biparts, and they only have a 2.5-foot door. We are also installing, typically the glass is tempered. I think most of us know, you've seen tempered glass. When it shatters, it crumbles into a lot of pieces.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat the question for the people?
Sure.
Because
I'm sorry.
this has happened a few times.
Sure. I'm going to stay.
And they can't hear you. They can't hear you. So come
I'm
over
going
here.
to talk a little louder over here. Okay. The question was, how do I plan on trying to reinforce the patio doors since we're not going to proceed with shutters at the current time? It's my belief that the majority of the patio doors, when they blew in, caused most of the damage on the interior. So in future storms, if we can keep the wind and the rain out, we should have a lot less damage. So my intent is we have a 10-foot, 4-inch opening on those patio doors approximately. All the units vary. So my intent is to put in a biparting, let's call it a door that opens in the middle and slides each way. So when it's fully opened, you'll have approximately a 5-foot opening. These doors are now anchored in a track top and bottom, and the closure has a seal type of grip when they shut, so that when the wind hits them, they're going to be a lot more stable because they're anchored top and bottom, and we may put a device that goes through the door that drives pins top and bottom as well. We're still developing that with the aluminum company in Mexico City. The other thing I'm doing is we're changing the type of glass. All of the glass in our buildings, which is typical, is tempered glass. When tempered glass breaks, it crumbles into a lot of little pieces of glass. I want to use, and let me tell you that a window is designed with tempered glass, that once the glass starts to bow from wind, that the glass at a certain point then is actually designed to blow out of the frame. We're going to change that to laminated glass. Laminated glass is like what you have in your windshield in your car. It's 2 pieces of glass that are laminated together, and when that window breaks, it stays together. It may be broken and cracked, but all the pieces kind of hang together. And the design pressure for the wind is a lot higher before that window blows out. So I think by changing all of these components, we will now have a much stronger door that will not blow in. That's the goal. Yes?
So Wes, I just want to understand the view, how this is going to affect the view. Is the total opening for this door going to be 5 feet wide, or is there going to be some fixed glass on either side?
There will be fixed glass on each side of the opening, approximately 2.5 feet on each side. And when the doors are both opened, you'll have 5 feet approximately in the middle of a clear opening to walk out to the jacuzzi
So
deck.
if you have 2.5 and 2.5 plus 5-foot door, that's a 10-foot wide view.
The openings are approximately 10 foot plus. They vary building to building.
While I have you, I just have one question, and that is, are you bilingual, Spanish, English, or how are you dealing with communications?
Okay. No, I am not bilingual. I am communicating with our 2 companies. Boreoli is a Mexican company out of Puerto Vallarta. Jose Luis speaks very good English. His father, who is an architect, speaks very good English. He will be on site as well. And those are the 2 people I will be predominantly communicating with for Boreoli. The IMM team, it's an American company, even though they do a lot of work in Mexico. They all speak English, and they have 2 or 3 employees that act as interpreters that have excellent skills. Oh, and I also have Olivia Galeana, who is the general manager at Club